So what I think you should do is go through some of the categories, not all, but some. If you just mark one component, let's say I mark the text value, you can see the component layout is going to be changed. This has some benefits, but I don't like it, because it's going to make some stuff change order. Let's say if I have it like this and choose another component, they're all going to be changed. They're going to be jumping around because it's compatible with this component. These all is going to be able to use this pulse generator, or in this case it's going to be clock, in this case digital, text, and so on. So what I do is I often disable this recommended icon. Okay, so now when I change, it's not gonna be fooling around and changing the order. And why is this a good thing? Well, when you're starting to know Visuino, and let's say you're gonna take a look in the integer section, I take one of these components, drag it out, and everything's gonna change. Sorry, like this. I have more of them open, and sometimes the integer is gonna be below. It doesn't do that in this example. Let's take another one. See if I can simulate it. You see? And sometimes this category is going to be hidden further down. And that I don't like that. So my tip is try to disable this, go through one category at a time. Alright, the integer one is a pretty small one, and the ones you need to know for starters is analog. It's quite big, you see. Don't start with this one because it's a lot of components specific to some hardware, like this one. These are not gonna be the same type of components that you can find in the integer, but in the integer you're gonna find a lot of similarities in the analog. So because some of them are gonna be, let's say you have text value, for example, text value over here. Alright, this green arrow is the same in all the categories, like analog value, here you have it, unsigned, there you have it, and let's say compare, you have compare text, looks like this, and you have compare analog, looks like this. Many of these are you're gonna recognize them when you go through some of the categories. So the categories you have to focus on that at the first is, I like to go through integer, know about this one, what these do, and the text. This is very good, useful to know. Let's see, the analog is very good to know, but use it a little bit later on, but you need to know about it. And you have the synchronization. These ones are very useful when you're gonna control the flow, and you might not need it the first time around, but very soon you're gonna need to know every single thing of these. Many of them is repeating, like this one, repeat analog, repeat byte, and so on. So all these are pretty much the same. So this is a clock, We looked at it before. This is the multi-clock. So if you have more components that needs to be triggered in a specific order, like this, and use a clock to make it go as a source. You have the detect edge. It's going to be useful. You're going to use it a lot. You have multi-analog. You have the multi-integer, multi-text, and so on. This repeat types, this is going to be repeating just like the loop in a regular Arduino IDE. It's going to repeat everything from this output, not in a specific frequency like in this one, but it's going to repeat as often as it possible can. So that's going to be depending on the hardware. You have, let's see, if I have the repeat clock, it's going to be a bit different. This is going to repeat as often as you type in the interval. When it's 0, it's going to be making no pauses. It's going to be triggering as soon as possible, but just as many times as the count says. So in this case, it's going to repeat only once, which means one clock signal, not 2, but 1. So this could be very useful when you have to trigger a flow more than once in a specific timing, or just do it twice or 3 times or whatever. Using this clock generator, it probably could be a problem when you only need to trigger something 3 times, for example. You don't have to have it triggering all the time. That could be a problem. So repeat a specific number of times. Use all these components, one for each. So repeat text, for example, it's going to take this value that comes in and repeat it as many times as you type in the count. And the same goes with digital or analog or whatever you like. All right. So these are basically not that many. You have a few more here. That's also very good to know. The start one is only gonna be running once, and that's every time the board boots up or gets its power the first time. So then it's only gonna send one clock signal. That's all. Other times you might need to control some of the components with a specific order and a specific timing, sending a clock signal to every single one of them. Then you use the sequence. The sequence period, you can add it over here like double clicking or drag and drop. If you use these, you can trigger several components in specific order. Let's say you have this one, and let's say to have a digital value or a text value. Text value. Then I connect these ones from each row, and it's gonna be triggered in the default is 1 second in between. It's milliseconds. So if I mark this or double click it, you get this element window, and if I press the first one, which is this one, I can set the time to whatever I want, like 100 milliseconds. It's 1/10 of a second. What it's gonna do is, as soon as it gets this clock start signal, it's gonna run every single period from the top down. First it's gonna wait 100 milliseconds, then it's gonna send this clock signal. So if you want it to act as soon as possible, you're gonna change the value to 0. Then it's not gonna be a pause. And after that, it's gonna wait 1 second and send a clock signal, and then wait 1 second and clock signal. If you want to repeat it, you just mark this and check the false to true. Then it's gonna be running all over all the time. You don't need a clock signal for that. So this is a sequence. It's a very useful tool to trigger a specific order as well. But it's not gonna be as soon as possible. It's gonna do it in the timing that you have set. Sometimes you want to delay a clock signal so it doesn't trigger too fast. 1 second is the default, but this is microseconds, not milliseconds. Alright, so this is 1000 milliseconds. Alright, that's the default. I think that is pretty much it in the synchronization tab. Yeah, okay, you have the timing as well. Timer. This is just timer that turns true and false. I don't remember the specific order, but let's see. I can try it so we know. And upload it. Done. And I connect. It's gonna send the value once, false, and then true. So it's gonna end with a true value. Alright, let's see how that is gonna be acting like a clock. Let's see. Because this is very often people use this component, but it doesn't act the way they think. Let's see. I think that it's when it reaches the false, it's gonna be triggering the clock signal, but it have to have a true before. So this is not gonna work as a clock, I think. I might be wrong, but I think it's not gonna be working as long as you have only one circle of time, if you like. So the first time it's not gonna send a clock, but then when the clock's generator is gonna move on to the next second, then you're gonna start the timer once again, and that's when the clock signal comes. This might be a bit confusing, but let's say I change the clock signal to once every 5 seconds. So it's gonna take, let's see, it's gonna take 6 seconds, I think, before this is going to be 5 or 6 seconds before it's gonna be a clock signal. Alright, done. And connect. It's gonna be waiting 5 seconds because now the timer have gone one time, and the second time it's gonna be a complete clock signal. So it's after it's been true, and when it reaches false, that's when it's gonna act like a clock. So that many people think of this the other way. They think that it's gonna be a clock signal as soon as they reached 1 second. In the next part we're going to talk about characters, texts, and a little about JSON. Thank you for watching, and I hope I see you in the next part.